Well, hello and welcome back. We are continuing season 28, AI, shining lights in the cracks. We're in episode 2. Actually, it's part 2 of our interview, and we're going to dive right back into that in just a few moments. But first, we should probably tell you where you are and what to expect a little bit, because this is Developreneur, the Building Better Developers podcast. I'm Rob Broadhead, one of the founders of Developreneur, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we help you find clarity before you step into that project that allows you to avoid expensive technology mistakes before they happen. So you don't even have to write that check. Just write a smaller one to us or something along those lines. Good thing and bad thing. Good thing is it has been a day. I am like towards the end of a day as we're recording this. And so, I'm pretty much like ready for it to be over, even though I do have a few more things to do before said day does end. Bad thing is tomorrow is going to be the same thing. I've got another one that starts way too early and ends way too late, but those are first world problems. Someone that can share some of those first, second, third, probably even fourth world problems. Michael, introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Meloche. I'm one of the co-founders of Building Better Developers, also known as Developreneur. I'm also the founder of Envision QA, where we help businesses take back control of their systems, uncovering bottlenecks, making sure that the right solutions are put in place. We do that through assessments. We do that through walking through your processes, really getting to know your business and helping you. Good thing and bad thing. Good thing, wrapping up a big project, and I guess bad thing, I have time on my hands and I need to figure out the next, what I'm going to do next with my business or find that next customer.
There's always honey-do lists. I'm sure there's always a honey-do list that can suck that time right up. But before we get into any of that fun stuff, we're going to get back to our conversation. This was a fun one. Looking forward to this. Open your notebooks, pencils up, time to take notes as we continue our conversation with the guys from Fusion Hive.
I really love this conversation because this really gets near to dear to my heart for what I've been doing for many years. Because for over a decade, I was writing integration testing and building test frameworks. And everything you're talking about is essentially what you have to do from a tester's perspective for integration testing. You have to look at the data, you have to look at the process, you have to look at the flow. Where's everything interconnect? It's just still interesting though. I use AI all the time as well for a lot of things, but I still find myself writing automation scripts that go do most of the work. Basically, I have a rules engine that kicks off, it does all the preloading, and then I use the AI to basically save money on all the AI tokens, all the AI pieces. And I'm also building my own personal AI as well, but I still find it useful to go back to the machine language or back to like Python or something to just go scrape all the data. It still seems faster on the front end I'm sorry I keep getting back to the data side of this, but it's like you almost have to build the processes, automate those, funnel that data into like a data lake or someplace that you can just go get in one place for AI. The reason I'm kind of getting at that is because what you guys are talking about, I'm seeing today. So if you have Office 365, you have your emails, you have your Teams messages, you have notes. If you go into Copilot inside of Office 365, it reads all of that. You can say, hey, go summarize all my emails for today. What is the most important thing I need to look at? So some of that already pre-exists in some of these existing systems, but they're still clunky and you're still exposing your data to corporations. So with this model that you're doing, what kind of governance and what kind of protections do you have for your customers?
So that's definitely a very loaded question. I think when you get into governance and guardrails, I think from a data perspective. So what we try to do and what we are trying to approach to our customers is like, we're not going to give you a new system. What we're trying to do is we are going to build within their existing systems. So to your point, if someone is in Microsoft, heavily in Microsoft systems, right? They're in Office 365, Outlook, whatever not, right? And you said, like you mentioned about Copilot, right? So they're doing on a daily basis, asking to Copilot about this. Like now, this is a repeatable process, right? A customer or an employee is going every day and doing the same thing. Hey, tell me about my next meeting. Tell me about my next whatever it is, right? So how to use that data and wherever it is existing and put a workflow on top of it and put a agent on top of that, right? With the guardrails, with the right guardrails, so someone doesn't have to come in and tell the agent or to ask Copilot, write a prompt. It should automatically happen on a schedule on a cron, right? It should, if it's morning time or if it's like your meeting time is scheduled, go and like trigger the agent should trigger and get you all your meeting notes, right? So that's an example, a very basic example on how Outlook or email could work in that sense, right? Now take this a little step further, right? If let's say you are in a regulated industry, I'll give you an example of like care providers, healthcare services, financial services, right? They all run with documentation and human checks by hand, right? So staff submitting a form per page, and owner or manager checks each one against several layers of rules and regulation, reformatting the files, and is hours of oversight every single week. So what we can do over here from a governance perspective, particularly, is like we need to have some kind of rules. To your point, Michael, rules are important in that sense, right? And that's where the determinism comes into picture, right? So extracting the fields, validating against the rule set, right? Flagging the gaps, routing the exceptions. And now the owner's job with a workflow like this becomes that they're reviewing a flagged minority set, flagged a small set of flagged use cases or exceptions, rather than reviewing everything. Like, John, anything to add on that?
I would say a lot of the companies that we work with too they have their own internal either MSP team or an internal IT department that will have either a governance process in place outside of the AI component. So it's really critical for us to work very closely in partnership with a firm's internal IT teams or their MSP firms, if they have one, to make sure that, I would say, to Piyush's point, a lot of these systems that we're building are within the ecosystem that there's the systems that they're already using, whether it's Google, Azure, AWS. So a lot of the work will need to be done in parallel with their internal IT team. So when we're setting up the governance structure on the AI side, there can be often overlap with other, a lot of them have data governance teams and processes that have to kind of line up and dovetail in certain areas with the AI governance component. So I would say the kind of takeaway is to not just be focused only on the AI governance thing and to kind of zoom out and have a more holistic view of all the different systems and the other kind of governance related, whether that's data or processes or other workflows, to take that into account and not just be narrowly focused on the AI side of things for that.
Well, that really brings up because you guys both touched on, again, two different areas. It's like one, so you got the governance that says, okay, this is what we're doing, but then you also have all these people that are doing these tasks right now, these manual tasks that they're going through. They're making these decisions every day. How often is it that you run into an organization where you step in and they give you the governance documents and say, okay, this is how we work, and this is how it's going to run, or you talk to the people that are doing it, and that's not actually how it works. You get into there, you start building the automation, building the AI, or however it is, whatever the system is, the solution you're building, and you find out that, well, this is our exposing the cracks, I guess, is that you found a few cracks in that they don't actually follow the governance, or there's stuff that was in somebody's head that just hasn't gotten out of their head yet.
I would say it's not very often that we see a super mature SMB and mid-market firm that has a very defined governance model in place and that they follow. Certain ones do, right? The more kind of regulated, the ones that feel the pain if there is an issue more so, they are kind of more set up that way. But oftentimes I would say it's more often than not that they don't have those in place. And so when we come in and we start talking about AI governance, it kind of to your point, Rob, it does expose the other areas of like the data side of things and the other security aspects as well that need to be taken into account. So it definitely does expose some of those different areas that they need to pay attention to and to think about as they're kind of thinking through the workflow components of things.
Yes.
No, I think I agree with John on that. Right? I think that's the part which we try to look at, like governance. Like John mentioned, in SMB space, there are some industries, regulated industries, where we have some kind of governance predefined, which is important for the regulated industries. So we try to follow with that. One of the challenges which we many times run into is like these industries or these businesses, they are very skeptical of like, so how is my data going to be trained or used for training in the LLM space? Right? So that is a big challenge which we are trying to answer or address that. And there are some times where we like look at, or we have to go through like different providers in the background. Like Microsoft has its own, Azure has its own services where you have to like talk to Microsoft and get like an exception of no for model training or things like that, right? We have looked at that along with like sometimes it could be just like the use case is small enough that you don't need a frontier model in that case, right? And how to evaluate and get to the point that you don't need a frontier model. We could like host smaller models or open weights model for you, which you can go and use directly in your use cases, right? So it's a wide range in that sense, Rob. But yes, we try to keep that data privacy and data governance on top because that the industries we're working with, that's in their mind too.
Now, because you guys have both been in this for a while, we've done this for many years, decades or more. Have you seen organizations get better? Because now we're in AI, and there was digital transformation, there was cloud, there's been all of these things over the years that have sort of pushed on the edges of organizations like this. Have you seen them? Are you seeing them now having a better, even in the smaller, newer organizations, that the governance is more likely to be there, or is more mature, or their processes in general are just more mature or better defined? Or is it sort of the same thing that you were witnessing 5, 10, 15 years ago?
So both John and I coming from like a more enterprise background. So with enterprises or with bigger organizations, yes, they do have a governance team. And Michael, you guys both have, I'm sure, worked with many of those, right? They have a defined governance team from a data perspective, from an AI governance perspective as well. And AI governance is something which is getting more and more pillar, I would say, in that sense. Like now they try to have someone who is at the head of an AI governance. Like there's a whole team which is doing AI governance within bigger enterprises, right? Is that shifting or coming to the smaller or mid-sized businesses? Not so quickly. I think they are starting to think about it, but they still very skeptical. They are still very like, okay, how will this solve the problem which I'm doing? Or is just going to add another expense on my to-do list, right, which they want to manage their finances more differently, right? So I think governance is a part of it, and we talk about it in our whole AI Kickstarter audit. We talk about the governance. We talk about, is there one person who can help us navigating the data landscape? And to John's point, going back, like usually they have an IT MSP team, or if it's a healthcare provider, they would healthcare services something, they would have someone who is a HIPAA compliant officer from an HIPAA perspective. And so all of those governance part comes into picture.
I think the exception to that too is where you see mid-market firms that have a governance structure in place is due to the fact a lot of times is you have a CIO or some other C-suite leader that came from an enterprise space where they have the background, the knowledge of what the governance takes and what it looks like and why it's important. And they are now working at a SMB or mid-market firm where they kind of see where things are going from an AI perspective, as well as they know how to drive the conversation around governance. So a lot of these mid-market firms, they don't even aren't super aware of even where to start or what governance truly is from a tactical perspective. But I think in like the healthcare, financial services within the mid-market space here, we see more of that. And unfortunately, with AI, I'm sure in the future there will be large cybersecurity issues and big things that will happen that will kind of force the hand of a lot of these SMBs and mid-markets to pay attention to having a formal governance process in place and all the data security and other security related to the AI features that a lot of their company data is running on.
So I mentioned earlier, this season is, exposing the cracks of AI. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. So we talked about governance. So in the decade's worth of experience that you guys have in this area, what are some of the worst case situations you've run into with AI that customers should watch out for? And then what are the other unknown risks, the hidden risks of using AI with your business?
So I'll start from the business side of things, and I'll hand out to Piyush if he has any technical things that come to mind. But from a business perspective, one of the worst things you can do is pick the wrong use case. A lot of times, a lot of business leaders, they have a directive to say, hey, we just need to get AI live. We want to try it. We want to get our hands on it. That kind of thing. That is probably the worst way to start. If you are not starting from the kind of what are the target metrics from a business perspective that you're wanting to is kind of like your North Star, you're really kind of going without a map at that point, and you're going to be burning a lot of dollars from implementation and tokens usage and people's time. We've talked to a lot of companies that they come to us and they say, we just want to get started with AI. We kind of have to reframe how they view it of like, okay, let's talk about what are your metrics for this year. And a lot of the challenge too is with these mid-market firms is they don't always track a lot of the things that can be used for an ROI perspective, right? Like cycle time, quote, lead to cash perspective or timing. A lot of these that from exposing the cracks perspective that we've seen AI also do that as well from the business outcomes and ROI perspective. And that kind of also opens the door to them wanting to track, how long does it actually take from lead intake to fulfillment, or quote turnaround or lead qualification times, things like that. This kind of, shines a light on these areas that if you're able to understand what metrics you're trying to impact and change, then you can kind of work backwards from that and say, okay, I want to have XYZ, increase in profit margin percentage increase within the next 3 years. Then you can, talk to different teams and say, what are the things that impact margin? And then it kind of is a thread that will lead to specific workflows down to the very tactical aspects of it that will, what automation will help drive, impact, increasing the margins and things like that. So working from that perspective, or I guess the inverse of not doing that and just starting and saying, hey, let's just throw a copilot out there and see if it works, is a big problem, as well as the enablement side. So if you have an AI solution that goes live and you have no plan for enablement or training, especially if you're changing a lot of the processes within it, that can also set you up for failure. So you can have picked the right use case, you can model it out, say that, hey, this will impact margin, for example, in the right direction. But if people aren't enabled and trained up on how to actually use and do the new process and why it matters in the first place, and to remove any sort of fears that they might have of them losing their jobs because of the AI, no one's going to use it, and it'll look like a failure on paper because the adoption perspective is not taken into account as well. So that's what I've seen on the business process side of things. But I don't know, Piyush, if you have any thoughts on kind of the technical components.
I think those are really good examples, John, what you brought up. From a technical side of things, I'd say, and also to add more to what John mentioned already, if the workflow which the business is doing already is already broken, and you throw AI at it, right? AI is going to accelerate whatever exists. It's going to including the chaos which is already happening within the business or the workflow, right? It's going to just accelerate it. And if there's to both Rob and Michael, the points which you brought up, right, about no clear owner. If there is no governance owner, there is no clear governance owner. Nobody's there to say this works or this breaks, or to catch it when it does not, right? I think that's a big challenge which we have seen too. And the data point which we brought up was like, if the data is not existing, or it's not accessible, or it's not in a place where AI can even work on it, we need to go first and go fix that data issue, right? If we need to work on that data. We need to clean up that data. We need to understand that data better and make it more accessible for the workflows and the AI systems, whatever we're going to put in place. And again, guardrails and monitoring, right? I think evaluation, guardrails, and monitoring, those are three important things, right? So evaluations, any workflow before going into production, we should evaluate it up to like a holdout or golden data set, which we call, right? We should always have a golden data set, which we try to continue improving on. That's where the evaluations, you will understand if your workflow is doing well or your solution is doing better, performing well or not before even going to production. Guardrails, which is, we've all heard examples and of like someone used an agent on their our website or automotive website, and they were able to someone was able to buy a car for $1, right, or $10 or whatever it was, right? We've heard examples, and to John's point, these kind of situations or scenarios will increase more if we don't take a step back, start thinking about from a guardrails perspective, start thinking from a perspective of it's important that this is going out, this solution or this agent or chat, whatever it is, it's going out in the wild. We need to have guardrails, we need to do evaluations, we need to test it well before it goes out. And then third point is monitoring. When it is in production, it's not that it's done, just forget about it, it's working. No, you have to continuously monitor it, continuously look at the queries. Taking an example of a chat agent, you have to continuously monitor the queries or questions which are coming in. How can they be used to improve the system? What is the system responding to those queries? Things like that. So continuous monitoring is a big part of that too. So I think from a technical standpoint, I think those are important pieces of the puzzle as well.
Yeah, those are great and thorough answers, because those are touch on a lot of things. It definitely means gives the impression that AI is not just a simple thing where you just throw AI at it and boom, you're going to be ready to go. There are definitely a lot of considerations, and that fits very well with the conversations we have. And I love your if you accelerate chaos, it's just more chaos, and it's just going to cause more trouble. It's not going to help you or your organization to just do broken things faster. So making sure that you're in proper position to take advantage before you step into it. And unfortunately, we are already just flying through our time. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this session of this episode of the podcast. I want to thank John and Piyush and with Fusion Hive for hanging out with us. And if anybody else has been interested, as we have in this conversation, or want to get to know more about you guys, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, our website is fusionhive.ai. And then our through email, just John at fusionhive.ai and Piyush at fusionhive.ai.
Awesome. See, even straightforward contact stuff. That's the best kind of thing, where you don't have 18 different sites you have to share. So, well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you hanging out with us, and all the rest of you appreciate you hanging out here, becoming better developers, and hopefully you have gotten a lot more. If you haven't become necessarily a better developer, maybe you become a better designer and maybe a project manager or something along those lines, with some of the things that we've covered this time around, to make sure that when you go to step into that, whatever that project is, that you've actually prepared the organization and your team around you. That being said, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time. Now, the bonus thing I want to throw to you guys, this I was gonna do it, but I was like, hey, this will be a great bonus question. You both talked about the resources and the costs and having metrics. And so, and you even brought up the idea of frontier models versus local models and things of that nature. How much education is involved with customers to help them understand the cost of what they're stepping into? Because we have these organizations that are, they're supposedly firing everybody and making AI do it. And then you've got people that are on the other side and building all these huge security things so that they can go do AI. How much of of actually like talking through a project and pricing out a project? Are you having to actually educate your customers on simple factors like, you could go to a frontier model, or you could have a local model that's going to have different pricing. It's going to have, different security, or different frontier models doing, some sort of automation versus putting AI in the loop versus humans in the loop. And either one of you can jump on that one first.
Yeah, I think I would say it's a decent amount, right? Because a lot of companies that we're talking to, like their exposure is ChatGPT, and they've rolled it out to their team, and like they're using it from a chat interface perspective. But when you move to more of like an AI agent perspective, where it's taking action and it's doing data ingestions, there's a lot of different like cost components that are taken into account when you're thinking of a workflow that needs to intake email, look at a PDF, transcribe it, send it to another system. There's a lot of AI token consumption that is involved in that. So I think from that perspective, to Rob, to your question, I think there's definitely a big part of needing to educate a lot of these folks on what are kind of those levers that will incur costs for the company. And then looking at ways that can help make it more predictable for them. So a lot of the, like, if you're talking to a CFO of a mid-market firm, they're not going to love telling them, saying, hey, your AI costs are going to be kind of like cyclical. It's going to be all over the place each month to month, right? They like to see consistency. They're used to SaaS products where it's a month over month price. They know exactly what they're going to buy and stuff. And when you throw AI into the mix, it can vary, right? So when you're looking at your costs becoming variable versus more kind of stagnant and consistent, there's definitely an education period for that to show, okay, these are the reasons why it'll flux. Like if you're working with like a retail customer, if they have higher demands during the holiday season for customer support requests, you're going to see a spike in your AI consumption costs. I think helping to kind of equate it to their current world. So with that retail example, they would need to otherwise hire temporary workers to help the call support center. So your costs are variable in a way from that perspective, but just kind of showing them the benefits that they would get from AI, kind of lower those costs. Even though they're variable, they will be lower for the most part in a lot of instances.
Yeah. To add to that, I think a lot of times we see or people come to us and they're like, oh yeah, we need to use AI because we did a demo project. Someone in the team or someone was very excited about AI on our team. They looked at our projects and they coming up with this list of like projects, and they built this pilot. So they are basing everything off of a single demo-driven success, and they're skipping the baseline. There is no measurable exception rates. Like, why this project? How will you measure it once AI is workflow or AI solution in place, right? That's a hard thing to educate. And also like, and what we try to do is like, a lot of teams are also thinking like ChatGPT, Claude, great models, right? They have amazing benchmark scores. They are going to perform top of the line, right? Sure. Is this applicable to you directly? Is this what's going to solve the problems which you are facing? That's we need to take a step back and try to understand that, right? At the end of the day, every business has a different problem internally, which they're trying to solve for, and not all the time GPT, Claude, or any like frontier model would be the one which they will be able to solve it. But do we really need to do that, right? So like reaching for the most capable model because it feels like it's the safest choice, right? Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot, it's the safest choice. Let's go for it, right? It is a safe choice, sure, but it is also the most expensive choice, right? Are you planning to run this solution for just a month or 6 months? Or do you see the solution running for as long your business is running continuously, right? So continuously running with your business, growing with your business without costing you so much over time, right? So I think that's an education we also need to work with.
Yeah, that's just one of those that it wasn't meant to be like a gotcha question or anything. You guys had a great answer for it because it is. I think it's where it is a gotcha for a lot of businesses is that they step into it and they say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And yeah, you mentioned SaaS, but I've heard more than a few people are now complaining about the SaaS solutions that put AI on top of it. Now that flat model is changing because they're saying, oh, well, we've got to charge you for tokens. And I hear all the time, I hear this griping about, well, now they're charging us for tokens, and I don't know. And it's like, well, it's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
So it's yeah, it's just fascinating watching things change as the landscape changes. One real quick one too, because you guys brought something up that reminded me of an earlier conversation. Every couple of weeks it feels like there's some frontier model that's like getting all the news. There was a little while back it was ChatGPT, and now Claude's been really big in the news for a bit. And Claude came out and gave a different set of solution spaces, a little different type of things, different problems it could do, and it spoke more to what it can do for you. Have you seen more of a have you seen a change in your customers since Claude has come out? Where have you seen more of them where maybe they've tried something and they've got a little, maybe they've like tried and gotten burned, I guess, for lack of a better term. So they've got a little better idea of they don't know what they don't know?
I would say, yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot of customers that we had a couple in the regulated space where they were using ChatGPT to try and extract information from a PDF, and it was extracting it incorrectly. It wasn't getting it wrong, and so that was their kind of view of the AI capabilities for them. But I think it's also equally as important to, when we're designing our solutions, to be kind of LLM agnostic. So you mentioned Claude. They are front and center right now in a lot of different ways. They're extremely expensive, but there's a lot of SMB folks who are diving fully into Claude. They're doing the Claude small business package, which is great in a lot of instances, but it will limit you in certain areas where you don't always need the Claude model to perform all the different tasks. And so they're paying a higher token rate for every single action that they're doing. And so having kind of a solution that is more LM agnostic, where it kind of will adapt and use a different model based on the complexity of the task that is needed to be done, is often way, way more cost. Makes a lot more sense from a cost perspective, as well as kind of latency and other things as well. So that's kind of how we've approached our methodology of like wanting to be more LLM agnostic, because in 6 months the whole landscape could look very different from now. So being able to
6 months is also a long time.
Yeah,
6 months is also a long time in today's space, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, 6 days it could change.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah. So yeah, we are also like trying to talk to our customers, like focus on like think about from, of course, LLM agnosticism, but also with task-based routing. Depending on the task, use the model. Select the model based on the task you're doing. You need a simple summary of an email or a document. You don't need Claude level power, GPT level power. You can use a simple model or smaller model and do it, right? So task-based routing is going to be very important going down, right? As we start building more and more solutions which are dependent on, because many times if you have task-based routing, and this comes back to Michael, I think you brought up about the coding and determinism part of it. If it is a task-based routing, some of it could be like deterministic, goes to a coding base where it is like already coded in rules and regulations, whatever, and it works that way. And another part, which is like if it's task-based, it is complicated enough that it needs to go to an AI model. But that's where task-based model routing can also work with the AI, with the code part of it. So that's something which we should also be looking at.
It's kind of funny because it's like go back like to the early 90s when we were dealing with different levels of data. You had your tape backups, you had your floppy disks, you had your CDs, you have your hard drives. It's almost like AI is the same kind of thing. It's like, at what level do you need the information at, or the AI software? So it's like, where do you offsource certain things to keep the costs down and to keep the speed flowing?
At the end of the day, it's also like, what is the long-term vision for the solution or the business, right? Is the long-term vision just run the solution for a few months and then see how it performs and turn it off? or you really want to continue running this for a lifetime, right? So at that point, you can't build it or on one single platform, one single model like Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot, because as we all know, as we have seen, like they have significantly increased their costs over time. And this is probably going to continue if this is a pattern, right? It's a pattern-based industry. We usually follow that kind of. And so what if this continuously increases? Will your workflow or solution which you built today will survive that inflation in pricing or not? Keep that in the forefront.
Well, we are out of time. So thank you so much for you guys for hanging out here and giving some great answers. We've always, every time I have a conversation with you guys, it's always a great one. I always walk out with some extra ideas of like, oh yeah, I need to think about that a little bit more too, or hey, I could apply that to that project that I'm working on. So we will get this out. This will go out probably next week. We'll get links to you guys. Feel free to share it wherever you want to, dice it up wherever you want to do to highlight things that you can. They'll be helpful to you. And let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything we can do to help you before whenever the next time is that we talk. I think we're already on a calendar somewhere. So if not, I'll be pinging you soon and we'll set that one up.
Awesome. That sounds good. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate it. It's been great.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Take care.
Bye.